Every offseason, there are contracts that make you scratch your head and go, what? How? Why? So in today's video, I want to go back and look at every offseason since the year 2000 and find out what is the worst free agent contract given out every single year. And let me tell you, you stick around to the end and see some of these names that got big money in the 2000s, it will blow your mind. So remember to drop a like on the video if you enjoy it, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so and you want to see more baseball content like this. Get in the comment section down below, let me know who you think the worst contract was given out for this season, and follow me on all my social media, GiraffeNeckMarc, links are in the description. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, SeatGeek. I am so ready for the baseball season. I can't wait to get to some games this year, and with spring training underway, you can go watch spring training games right now live in person with SeatGeek. And even if you don't want to go to a baseball game, they have tickets to events like basketball games, football games, concerts, festivals, and so much more. I'm heading down to Florida soon, so I want to buy some tickets to Mets spring training games. I hop right onto SeatGeek, and I can buy tickets instantly, and I know I'm getting a good deal with SeatGeek. Plus, what I love is their SeatGeek score. SeatGeek will rank tickets on a scale of 1 to 10, along with red and green circles. If you see scores that are close to a 10 or have a green circle, that means they're good tickets, you should buy those. If you see tickets with a red or orange circle closer to that 1 score, you don't want to buy those, avoid them. So, you know your boy came through for you guys once again. You can use my code Giraffe10 for 10% off your next purchase of tickets on SeatGeek. That's 10% off any purchase, doesn't need to be the first time. Not everybody gets this code, so make sure you use it and save that money. So make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have my code Giraffe10 automatically added to your account so you can get that discount. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to it. Let's get started with the 2024 offseason, and the worst contract given out that year so far has to be Jordan Montgomery, a 1-year, $25 million contract with an option for the following year, which Jordan Montgomery picked up. He signed late in the offseason and was genuinely one of the worst pitchers in baseball last year. A 6.23 ERA, a 1.65 whip. He had a negative 1.4 WAR. Everything went wrong for Jordan Montgomery, and the fact that the Diamondbacks are stuck with his contract again this following season is a little bit scary. It's only 1 year, it's a short amount of time, but so far, Jordan Montgomery has the worst contract of the 2024 offseason, which has now become a 2-year, $47.5 million deal. The 2023 offseason had a ton of bad contracts, but there are two that stick out in particular to me. It's hard to pick which one's the worst. The first one being Jose Abreu's 3-year, $58.5 million contract with the Houston Astros. In case you guys were wondering what Jose Abreu's up to, nothing really. He got straight up cut by the Astros during the season last year. He only played 176 games in 2 seasons, had a negative 1.7 WAR, a total of 20 homers, a 625 OPS for an OPS plus at 73, which is a full 60 points lower than his career average OPS plus with the White Sox. He failed in spectacular fashion. Funny enough, the other terrible contract from this year comes from the Chicago White Sox with Andrew Benintendi, who got the largest free agent contract in White Sox history, a 5-year, $75 million deal. In Benintendi's 2 seasons so far with the White Sox, similarly, he has been worth negative WAR. He has an OPS plus below 100 at 91. His batting average has been a career low. On base has dropped to almost under 300 for the 2 seasons. Last year it was at 289. A slugging percentage below 400. Benintendi's contract is aging like milk, and it's crazy because he's only 30 years old. So I couldn't pick between the two, but yeah, those are the worst for 2023. Similarly, for the 2022 worst contracts given out in the free agent market, 2 former teammates, Kris Bryant and Javier Baez. First off, with Kris Bryant, he got a 7-year, $182 million contract to play for the Colorado Rockies. And unlike Baez, where performance is most of the reason why, Kris Bryant's performance along with injury history has turned this into one of the worst contracts ever handed out. So far, Kris Bryant has played 159 games in 3 seasons for the Rockies, 17 homers, 27 doubles, and 60 RBIs, with a 250 average, 332 on base, a sub 400 slugging, and an OPS at 713 for an OPS plus at 89. That is almost 50 points lower than his OPS plus career average for the Cubs. The health concerns and the lack of good play has been really bad for the Rockies and Kris Bryant. And then, of course, his former teammate Javier Baez signing that 6-year, $140 million contract with the Tigers back in the 2022 offseason, also one of the worst. Unlike Bryant, Baez has been able to play. It's just been atrociously bad, and it's gotten worse and worse as the contract's gone on. Last year, he only played in 80 games. He got benched at one point. He finished with a 516 OPS. Overall for his career with the Tigers has been worth 1.8 WAR, has an OPS at 610, and has just been absolutely terrible. For the worst contract of the 2021 offseason, I think there's an honorable mention with Trevor Bauer. We know that off-the-field issues caused this contract to be void. Dodgers didn't end up having to fulfill this contract, but I thought it was worth an honorable mention. The worst contract that's going to be fulfilled is going to be DJ LeMahieu of the New York Yankees. He signed a 6-year, $90 million contract in the 2021 offseason, and since 2021, LeMahieu has quite literally fallen off a cliff. He had by far the best season of his career in a 50-game sample during 2020, and the Yankees paid him for it. Now, while he was good in 2022, he was worth around 3 WAR. The problem with LeMahieu's contract is that the last couple seasons he has really fallen off, and he still has 2 full years left, getting paid a total of $30 million over those next 2 seasons, and offering almost no value to this Yankees roster at this exact moment. Last year in 67 games, he only had 7 extra base hits and had a 527 OPS. It was bad. What could be the worst contract in baseball history was given out in the 2020 offseason, and that, of course, was to Anthony Rendon. Anthony Rendon is allergic to playing baseball. I don't even think he enjoys it at all. Since the Angels gave him that contract back in 2020, which, by the way, a 7-year, $245 million contract, Anthony Rendon has played a total of 257 games, accumulated 3.7 WAR, and has an OPS at 717, which is a league average OPS. He can't stay on the field. He's never played more than 58 games in a season. He's fought with fans. He's looked unenthused. He doesn't seem to care at all, and it seems like he cashed the check and doesn't care about the consequences. Anthony Rendon's contract might go down as one of the worst contracts, not just in baseball history, but all of sports history. It's honestly disgraceful how he's played, how he's handled himself, and how bad this contract is. I'm a little bit torn for the worst contract of 2019. You have Patrick Corbin, who got 6 years, $140 million from the Nationals. For 5 years of that contract, it was terrible. For the first year of that contract, it was awesome. Patrick Corbin was one of the better pitchers in baseball that season, threw over 200 innings, a 3.25 ERA, and was an integral part of the Nationals winning a World Series championship. But every year after that, especially after the COVID season, Patrick Corbin has been statistically one of the worst pitchers in baseball year after year, and paying him $23, $24 million a season to have an ERA north of 5, sometimes north of 6, is pretty insane. Also got to bring up the fact that Craig Kimbrell got paid big time by the Cubs in the 2019 offseason, signed a 3-year, $43 million contract with them. The first 2 years, he was one of the worst relievers in baseball, threw a total of 35 innings and had an ERA above 6 with a whip at 1.5. Now, he was good in the first half of the 2021 season, but then stunk it up the rest of the year in Chicago with the White Sox. I think you could have your pick here. Different reasons for different guys. I'll default to Kimbrell, though, because at least Corbin won you a World Series. Now, there's no doubt that the worst contract of the 2018 offseason belongs to Eric Hosmer and the San Diego Padres, who gave him a 7-year contract worth $144 million. This was coming off the best season of Hosmer's career in 2017, where he had a 4-WAR season, a 133 OPS plus. He's basically never seen numbers like that ever before in his career. He got to San Diego and he wasn't good. In the 5 seasons he played with the Padres, he had 3.6 WAR. He finished with a 737 OPS and OPS plus at 103. He truly wasn't that different than the player he was with the Royals in terms of the OPS numbers, but the counting numbers were worse. The defense was a lot worse. And overall, he just was an overpaid player even at the time. So I've got to put Eric Hosmer on here. Getting $144 million was pretty crazy. For the worst contract of the 2017 offseason, this one belongs to my favorite team, the New York Mets, giving Yoenis Cespedes a 4-year, $110 million contract. In retrospect, it was pretty insane. At the time, I was ecstatic. I was thrilled because Yoenis Cespedes just single-handedly put the team on his back and led us to a World Series berth. And even in 2016, I mean, the guy finished 8th in MVP voting. So I wanted Cespedes back. The problem with him is that he just could not stay healthy, and there were off-the-field issues as well. He got hurt riding a horse and chasing a wild boar around his yard. The storylines were bizarre. He disappeared in 2020, apparently. He left the team after playing 8 games. It was one of the weirder scenarios, and the fact that Yoenis Cespedes was getting paid around $27 million a year on average during the lifetime of this contract made it one of the worst contracts given out in a while, and definitely the worst of the 2017 offseason. The 2016 offseason gave us a couple of bad contracts, but the one that sticks out to me the most is going to be Chris Davis going to the Orioles on a 7-year, $161 million contract. Now, they did technically re-sign him, but he hit free agency, so that's why he qualifies for this. Davis, similarly to a lot of these guys, had a great first year with that contract. A 3-win player, hit nearly 40 home runs, and had an OPS around 800, but the production dropped off mightily, including a 2018 season where he was a negative 3 WAR player. I've never seen that before. He, of course, had the hitless streak. During 2020, he had a negative 8 OPS. I mean, just giving Chris Davis $161 million and basically getting no value out of him whatsoever. Tough pill to swallow for the Orioles front office. Next up, we have the 2015 offseason, and the worst contract goes to the Kung Fu Panda, Pablo Sandoval. The Red Sox shelled out 5 years, $95 million to Pablo, and wow, did he really just seem to stop caring. The weight got out of control. He was getting paid $18 million a year. The Red Sox just ended up cutting him at one point because they didn't even want him around. He was tweeting during games, on the phone. His belt busted open because he was so fat taking a swing. He literally never once even had a remotely okay season for the Red Sox. All he ever did was hurt them. He finished his Red Sox career 161 games, a negative 1.6 WAR. That is despicably bad. Former Red Sox popping up here. 2014's worst contract contract that offseason goes to Jacoby Ellsbury, signing a 7-year, $153 million deal with the New York Yankees. Now listen, Jacoby Ellsbury was awesome with the Red Sox, there's no doubt. He had an 8-win season in 2011, a 6-WAR player in 2013, and even that first year with the Yankees in 2014, he wasn't that bad. He was a 111 OPS plus guy, playing some good defense, stealing bases, worth around 4 WAR. The problem with Ellsbury towards the end of his contract was that he just could never stay healthy, and he also was not the same offensive player that he once was. The tools deteriorated, and you were paying Jacoby Ellsbury $21 million through the 2020 season. The problem is that Jacoby Ellsbury never played a game for the New York Yankees after 2017. The Yankees paid him over $60 million to not play. That's a problem. For the worst contract given out in the 2013 offseason, unfortunately, this one goes to Josh Hamilton and the Los Angeles Angels, who gave him a 5-year, $125 million contract. This is when you start to realize, oh man, the Angels might be cursed, because Josh Hamilton was genuinely one of the best players in baseball in his time with the Texas Rangers. The Angels saw it. It was their own division. They gave him this big deal, and he was terrible. He was awful. In the 2 seasons he played with the Angels, he accumulated 2.7 WAR, which honestly, not as bad as I thought, and he was still an above average hitter, but the fact of the matter is he was just not a player worth $25 million a year. They eventually traded him back to the Rangers. The Rangers cut him. He had some off the field issues, some on the field issues too. A very tumultuous career for Josh Hamilton, a sad one as well. There's no doubt though, this is the worst contract of the 2013 offseason. As for the 2012 offseason, I mean, this one's probably Albert Pujols, right? I was considering Heath Bell, who got paid $27 million over 3 years by the Miami Marlins. Heath Bell kind of instantly turned into one of the worst relievers in baseball as soon as he signed that contract, but it's hard to compete with Albert Pujols. It feels wrong to say because he's like one of the best players I've ever watched, but his time with the Angels was not particularly good. Like from 2012 to 2015, it wasn't bad. He was hitting like 30 plus home runs a year, driving in 100 runs. He wasn't the same MVP level Albert Pujols, but he was still a productive player. The problem was from 2016 to 2021, while he was a Los Angeles Angel, he was really, really bad. Not even a league average hitter who was getting paid $25 million a year to be bad, to not be on the field sometimes, to be pretty old. The contract also escalated as he got older and older. He was making $30 million as a 41-year-old. And in that 2021 season for the Angels, in 24 games, he somehow put up a whopping negative 0.7 WAR. So I hate putting Pujols on this list because he's so awesome, but yeah, that's one of the worst contracts ever. Next up, we've got the 2011 offseason, and honestly, forgot about this one. Genuinely one of the worst contracts ever. Carl Crawford's deal with the Red Sox, where he got 7 years, $142 million. He signed that in 2011. He played 2 seasons with the Red Sox, had less than 1 WAR accumulated, played 161 games. This was all coming off a year where he finished 7th in the MVP voting for the Rays in 2010. He wasn't stealing bases. He wasn't hitting for average. He wasn't getting on base. He wasn't playing good defense. Carl Crawford was so bad with the Red Sox, and even finishing off his contract with the Dodgers, he still never even came close to the player that he once was. And similarly with a lot of these deals, when you're getting paid $20 million at the time, you need to play like one of the top players in baseball, and Carl Crawford simply not. Oh man, the 2010 offseason, 14-year-old Mark was so excited. It was the second year of New City Field. The Mets had a pretty decent core with guys like David Wright and Jose Reyes, and we went out and we signed Jason Bay. 4 years, $66 million. As you guys know, it's one of the worst contracts ever. He was terrible. Between injuries, terrible play, and the fact that Citi Field was just a really hard ballpark to hit in, Jason Bay was never able to have any sort of success with the Mets. He played 288 games over 3 seasons, 1.8 WAR, a 687 OPS. It was by far the lowest of his entire career. The Mets were signing him off of a major year in Boston where he finished 7th in the MVP voting, and he just never even came close to that kind of player again. Feel bad for Jason Bay. I mean, shout out to him for getting paid, but wow, was I disappointed as a 14-year-old. It was a rough couple years for Mets fans. Next up, we've got the 2009 offseason. I want to give a quick shout out to AJ Burnett because his contract was ridiculous. He was terrible with the Yankees, but he ended up getting traded to the Pirates and was actually really good with them, so kind of a weird one. Instead, I opted to go with Derek Lowe, who got 4 years, $60 million from the Atlanta Braves in 2009 as a 36-year-old. What made it even more bizarre is it's not like the prior year. He was particularly amazing. Like, he had a 3.2 ERA. That's awesome, but he didn't even get Cy Young votes, and yet the Braves gave him $15 million a year at age 36, 37, 38, and 39. And in his time with the Braves, he finished with a 4.5 ERA. He basically had a 500 record, a whip at 1.46. He was just straight up not a good pitcher. It feels like they thought that they were paying prime Derek Lowe. Instead, they got the older version of him because he was almost 40. So when I looked up the 2008 offseason, my jaw dropped when I saw that the Mariners gave Carlos Silva 4 years, $48 million that year. I didn't know who Carlos Silva was. That's not a name that's even remotely familiar to me. Part of the reason why, he wasn't even good, like almost ever. And then once he got to Seattle, in 2 seasons, he made a total of 34 starts, was worth negative 2.8 WAR, finished with a 5-18 record, a 6.81 ERA, a whip at 1.6. There was nothing redeeming about Carlos Silva's tenure with the Seattle Mariners. I don't even know who was his agent. That guy deserves an award. How did he get $48 million for this guy? Because again, the prior year, he had an ERA in the 4s. That's nuts. The 2007 offseason saw Alfonso Soriano get paid 8 years, $136 million by the Chicago Cubs. Truthfully, in terms of value, it was not a good contract. He played 7 years with the Cubs and accumulated 8.2 WAR, but he still hit really well. He was just like a bad fielder. They tried to put him in the outfield. That was a complete mess, and that hurt a lot of his WAR value numbers because he was so bad defensively, but he still mashed. I mean, he was hitting 30 homers a year, stealing 20 bags, 100 RBIs. He was still a good ball player, so I didn't go with him. Instead, I'm going with Gary Matthews Jr., who the Angels paid $50 million to over 5 seasons. The Angels fell perfectly into the trap of paying for a guy off of a career season. The problem was Gary Matthews was going into his 32-year-old season, and that was the only time he'd really ever been a good hitter in his career. In 2006, he finished with a 121 OPS plus. Like, that's great, and he was also a good fielder. But then as soon as he got to the Angels, the offense fell right back off the cliff. In his 3 seasons with the Angels, he accumulated exactly 0 WAR, hit 30 homers, a 708 OPS for an OPS plus of 86. He eventually found his way onto the Mets too, which is crazy that the Mets considered even rostering this guy back in 2010. He had negative WAR that year and a 40 OPS plus. Like, wow, Gary Matthews Jr. getting paid $50 million was just, how did that happen? The 2006 offseason saw 2 pitchers get 5-year deals, and I don't know which one was worse. The Texas Rangers gave Kevin Millwood 5 years, $60 million, and the Blue Jays gave BJ Ryan, a reliever, 5 years, $47 million. With Millwood, they kind of got the rug pulled on them because the prior year, at least he finished in the top 6 of Cy Young voting and had a 2.8 ERA in 192 innings. With Texas, he finished with a ERA at 4.57 in the 4 seasons he was there, and a record that was right around 500. BJ Ryan was a little more interesting to me because 1, a reliever got paid big money back in 2006, and 2, he had 2 great seasons, but also sprinkled in 2 horrendous years. So yeah, his career stats for the Blue Jays, not that bad. Like a 2.95 ERA for a reliever with 75 saves doesn't sound terrible over 4 seasons. But in 07 and 09, he made a total of 30 appearances and had an ERA that was well above 7. Not to mention, he didn't fulfill his 5th year of the contract, so they just spent a lot of money on like 3 years that accumulated to little to nothing for the Blue Jays. So BJ Ryan or Kevin Millwood, have your pick. 2005, it was a lot easier to decide who the worst contract was. It was Carl Pavano, who signed with the Yankees on a 4-year, $39.950 million contract. And I'll say this, I can't blame the Yankees. A few years prior, they saw Carl Pavano dice him up in the World Series. Through 9 innings, only gave up 1 earned run. So when he hit the free agent market, especially after a good 2004, the Yankees were like, we got to be all over this guy. In his 4 seasons as a New York Yankee, he missed 1 due to injury, made a total of 26 starts, a 9.8 record with a 5 ERA, a whip at 1.45. Carl Pavano was just not good at all. It's one of the worst signings in Yankees history. And I feel like if you ask any Yankee fan over the age of 24, 25, Carl Pavano is the name they'll always bring up. Quickly go over 2004 and 2003 because these contracts were not particularly big. There just weren't a lot of bad contracts given out those years. In 2004, the Orioles gave Sidney Ponson a 3-year, $22.5 million contract. I can't really wrap my head around paying him because he was bad in the prior years. They even traded him away in 2003. But on that contract with the Orioles, he finished with an ERA near 6. His record was well below 500. 18 wins, 26 losses. He had a whip at like 1.7, which is insane. And he was basically worth 0 baseball reference WAR. So Sidney Ponson, welcome to the video. Shout out Aruba. And then in 2003, unfortunately, I gotta talk about Edgardo Alfonzo, one of my favorite players ever, signing a 4-year, $26 million contract with the San Francisco Giants. He had an awesome year in 2002, right before the Giants signed him with the New York Mets, where he had a 128 OPS plus, 851 OPS, hit 300, on base percentage near 400. He was great as a second baseman for the Mets. He got to the Giants and was literally never the same. His career with the Giants lasted 3 seasons, put up negative WAR, finished with an OPS plus at 88, which was about 30 points lower than his career average, an OPS at 723, the on-base percentage dropped, batting average dropped, he hit for almost no power. Edgardo Alfonzo was just not good in San Francisco. As for the 2002 offseason's worst signing, the Rangers make it back on this list with signing Chan-Ho Park to a 5-year, $65 million contract. Now, Chan-Ho Park was pretty good with the Dodgers in 2000 and 2001, so it's understandable why the Rangers were looking to shell out that money. The problem is that his time with the Rangers was atrocious. He finished with a 22 and 23 record, a 5.79 ERA, a whip at 1.61, only threw 380 innings over 4 seasons, so between injuries, poor performance, and just straight up being bad, Chan-Ho Park definitely the worst contract of the 02 offseason. For the penultimate, which means second to last contract that we're going to talk about, 2001 offseason, the Rockies gave out an insane amount of money that year. They gave Mike Hampton $120 million, which is shockingly not the worst contract because they gave out an even worse one to a pitcher by the name of Denny Nagel, who they gave a 5-year, $51.5 million contract to. Now, you might be wondering, how did that happen? I'll tell you this, I have no clue. Because in 2000, he had a 4.52 ERA, partially because he went to the Yankees in the second half and had a 5.8 ERA. So the guy finished the season terribly. The Rockies said, you know what? Let me give 32-year-old Danny Nagel $51 million for 5 years for absolutely no reason. In his 3 seasons he played in Colorado, he made a total of 72 appearances, 65 starts, a 19-23 record, a 5.57 ERA, a whip at 1.469. I understand Colorado's a tough place to pitch in, so almost nobody had good numbers at the time, but why did this guy get $51 million? Am I missing something? He was good with the Braves back in 1997. That was a full 4 years before this contract was given out. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Oh boy, the Rockies. I mean, they gave out $170 million to him and Mike Hampton. Whew. And then to wrap up today's video, the worst contract given out in the 2000 offseason goes to Darren Oliver and the Texas Rangers, who got a 3-year, $19 million contract. Again, not the worst deal overall, not a crazy amount of money, but in those 2 seasons that Darren Oliver did spend with the Rangers, he was really, really bad. Finished with a 13-22 record, an ERA approaching 7 over 250 innings, a whip that was approaching 1.8. I don't even really, again, understand why he got paid, how he got paid, who thought that was the right idea, because he was a pitcher whose career ERA was around like 4.5 at the time. He eventually became a reliever later on in his career and was way more successful, but that contract with the Rangers is a bit of a head scratcher. So there they are, the worst contract given out in every offseason since the year 2000. I'd love to know what you guys thought about the video down in the comment section below. Don't forget to leave a like as well if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel. Seriously, sub. If you want to see more of my content, you want to see more of these videos, subscribing is the way to do so. Follow me on all my social media. GiraffeNeckMarc links are in the description if you want to interact with me more. And that's where I'll wrap it up. You guys know the drill from here on out. YouTube recommends you watch this video. This is my most recent upload, so click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next video. Bye.